So I really like this little like tunnel thing here. I am suspecting there's a bit of an issue with the mirror angle because everything is out of focus, especially at infinity. The problem that this camera had when I initially got it was the shutter was jammed, that's never good. But I thought I kind of fixed it. I got it to at least work, which is, a positive. But there's probably still some issues here. So the film that I'm shooting with is actually film that came with this camera in a box of crap that I got. And I don't know how old the film is necessarily, but given the condition that everything in the box was in, I'm presuming the film's going to be pretty cooked. So I've got it rated at 120, I think, or 125. And it's a 200 speed gold film, so we'll have to see how the results look, but I'd imagine they'd be pretty cooked. The main reason that we do these things is just to mainly talk about the camera. I'm not trying to break new ground in terms of photographic abilities. That's not really my forte. I just think that in the realm that this camera exists, it is very unique and often overlooked, probably for good reason. At some points it could be considered kind of like a cheap phone-in, off-label stuff that Canon just slapped their name on. But I'm kind of existing somewhere in between that and my more judicious, optimistic approach of, they're just looking out for the average consumer. They're trying to make an affordable option for people. Somewhere in between there, that's kind of where I'm sitting. Of course, I did decide to go outside and walk around wearing black pants on a 90-degree day, which was not a good choice. I'm man enough to admit that. I didn't know when else I was going to get an opportunity to do this. That wasn't going to be the weekend when someplace like this is going to be absolutely packed. And it's a beautiful sunny day, so might as well walk around a little bit. Got these beautiful long stretches of field. On a bright sunny day, there's something about the way that this kind of carves off. And it might be a little bit miserable for me to be out here right now just because I am a wuss when it comes to heat. But I suspect that however cooked this film might be, the additional light is going to be a benefit. And those words could age like milk, but time will tell. I'm hoping to get away from the road. There's a big old freeway, highway thing right there. So hopefully we get away from that. It's a little bit less noisy. Can try to enjoy the natural sounds of the world here. And in the midst of talking about the T60, as much as I have been talking about it, there is something else I kind of want to discuss that's been top of mind. And I've yet to find a good venue in which to discuss these thoughts I've been having. And for the most part, it centers around the Happy Gilmore movie that came out recently on Netflix. And I need to specify that I've only seen maybe the first 30 minutes of it. I was kind of dozing in and out of sleep at my parents' house a few weeks ago. And my sister's fiance turned it on. I was like, oh, let's watch this. And he promptly fell asleep, which is not an indication of the quality of the film. It's just more of the indication of general exhaustion. It's 107 degrees outside that day. It's pretty hard to stay awake after that. But anyway, sometimes I can't believe I used to live there. All that to be said, if you haven't seen the movie, I definitely don't recommend it. I suspect that's probably because you either don't have access to Netflix or you don't want to. I don't really have a full consensus on the film itself in terms of is it good or not? But I can just give my thoughts initially on it based on the first 30 minutes and based off of what I suspect the next hour or so of the film was going to look like, which is not good. In my opinion, this is just not my kind of movie. Like many things in life, it's just not my cup of tea. And I'm happy to, admit that. I'm not I'm not under the impression that everything has to be made for my enjoyment here. But I'm not under the impression that everything has to be made for my enjoyment. In fact, that'd be a miserable world to live in. You know, imagine like everything that's out there is perfectly tailored to you and nothing is even remotely challenging to your beliefs or to what you enjoy. That would suck, I think, but what do I know? Anywho, there was nothing in that 30 minutes that was like, dang, I've got to go back and finish watching this. It was pretty much exactly what I expect it to be, which is not good and unoriginal. And all of the jokes you can kind of tell a mile out. It's odd. I felt like a bloodhound. You know how like those dogs that have been perfectly bred for the last hundreds of years to like hunt down animals just based off their scent. And they like, it doesn't take much, but they'll smell it and they know exactly where it is. That's how I felt watching this. It was like, I feel like I know exactly all of the jokes that are going to be said before they're said. And sure, the bit at the beginning where his wife just like dies randomly, that caught me off guard, but not in any like particularly challenging way. All I could think of was, man, she might not have had enough time on her schedule, or Adam Sandler just really wanted to be married to his wife in the end of the movie, which I think she was like the dance teacher or something like that. But that's not even really like the most depressing part of this whole thing. What I would say is like the most depressing is just they do this thing, and I don't know exactly how to properly discuss it. I love this right out here. I don't know if you can see. That's like remarkably beautiful out there with the stork just sitting there. I hope this turns out. It's just odd to me because like if you think back in the day, we had things like, I mean not we, I wasn't really alive, but you know there was like the Late Show, Jimmy Carson, Jay Leno. I was alive during his whole run, but like there was these like institutions that people would go to, and it would be some form of what's the word? And it's a form of acknowledgement, of professional acknowledgement. You are on the Late Show with so-and-so, you are a professional comedian, actor, whatever. You are recognized by the powers that be as X level of important, you have this much draw, whatever, right? And the modern interpretation of that for I would say worse, not for better, is like the podcast, right? Like, you know, you got all these people going on to all these different podcasts, and to some degree it's kind of like a washing of their personality with all these different audiences, you know. And to other degrees it's like a legitimization of who they are, their brand, all these things. And Happy Gilmore 2 employs this by, you know, having podcasts that you would recognize be featured in the movie, interviewing the people in the movie as their character and stuff. And like that's supposed to be something, which is just bizarre to me because it's nothing. The podcast is a real thing, right? That's something that we can all acknowledge exists in the world. I don't even remember like some of the podcasts they show, but like sports podcasts, whatever else, personality, comedian podcasts. People that you recognize in your day-to-day life, and the actors in the movie are going on these podcasts in the movie as the character that they're acting as. And all of this is to legitimize them in the world of the movie, but it's using our acknowledgement of those podcasts in the real world as the way in which to legitimize the character. And it's just fascinating to me because it is not anything even remotely close to like well written or well utilized. It is it's like a scavenging, like a Frankensteining of all of these different things that we recognize or hold any kind of value in. And it's utilizing that all to kind of project these characters in this movie that, you know, is all fake. So it's such a bizarre fabrication of reality, such a bizarre bastardization of what we recognize as real in a way that just feels cheap. And it's not even for like any kind of joke. Like, there is a joke here or there involved in it, but again, it's like the most obvious jokes you can think of. And it's just, what is the point other than, one, to legitimize the characters in the movie or the podcast themselves, but moreover, it's as an advertising tool for the movie. Because if you go on Joe Schmo's podcast and, hey, we want to use XYZ for the film, like we want to use a clip of this for the film, then they're more than likely going to advertise the show. So why do they do it? If there's not really a joke involved and the jokes that are there are incredibly obvious, well, it's kind of a twofold reason, I think. One, it is a leveraging of notoriety. The movie needs to use the podcast in order to like legitimize itself. But then two, I think it's a cheap marketing ploy. If you go on so-and-so's podcast, say, hey, this is going to be in a movie, now they're starring in a movie, and that's great. They're in a movie with Adam Sandler. Whoa, look at me, I've made it. All right, cool, I'm in this movie. I wanted to talk about it on my podcast. I talk on many hours a week, every week. Gets people talking, gets the buzz going, gets people excited. What's this movie going to be like? Oh, my favorite podcaster's in it. I want to watch it now. It's just this very odd realm of media that we find ourselves in, where no longer is the film like a sacred thing. And not that I think it should be. I think that whole idea of like old Hollywood's kind of lame. But I also think whatever new iteration of all of this is also equally lame. Because it's not even like a film anymore. It's just content. Everything is just content. And it's not good is the problem. Like, it's not pushing the boundaries. Happy Gilmore 2 doesn't need to be made. It didn't need to be made. The only reason it was made is because it would be, presumably, semi-profitable. They took a look at the numbers, like, oh, we got Adam Sandler on contract. We can make a sequel to this movie that people really enjoyed. But they don't add anything to the conversation. They really don't. It's just, this is a new thing. And the stuff that is added is just a weird bastardization of the past in a way that still feels derivative, in spite of the fact that it's supposed to feel additive, which is a uniquely bizarre combination of things, if you think about it. But it doesn't provide anything in terms of challenge. The comedy that exists, if you want to call it that, is far from comedic in my recollection of things. But again, this is not a thing that like, oh, they didn't make a movie for me. I'm fine. I'm fine that they didn't. I don't mind. It's just, I'm very confused as to the overall point of any of this. Anyway, that is the end of the roll. Look at this. Just got the birds out here. There's a little duck over there if you can see him. Some killdeer. Some birds are bathing in the back. The sound is adorable just hearing them fluttering around. There's another duck over there. I think that's a duck. Anyway. I guess the reason I wanted to make all of this point is just because I find myself very frustrated with oh no, it's a beaver. Oh. And it's a little beaver over there. The reason I wanted to make this point is not because I want to be the ultimate hater or anything like that. I don't take personal offense to Happy Gilmore 2. I just find the world in which we exist as deeply unsettling, because everything has to be viewed through these multiple layers of different films and different filters. Like, nothing is how it is anymore, unless you're in an instance where you're just interfacing with one other person, having like a conversation directly. Everything else exists as a reference to something else, or utilizing a reference to something else as a way to kind of create something that you have to buy, some kind of subscription. And that's what the Happy Gilmore thing is. It feels like content being put out on a mass streaming platform in order to continue to earn your money. Pay for the subscription for another month and you might get to see, Billy Madison too. Pay for it for 3 more months, you might get to see, what's the other one he's in with the kid, like the little kid? Big Daddy too. You'll see that. And we'll bring back one of the twins. We'll bring him back and it'll be great. Everybody's going to love it. It's just sad, I think, because we're not experiencing the creation of anything new. We're just experiencing the bastardization of old things and the resuscitation of things that don't need to be resuscitated. Why are we making a Time Bandits TV show? Why would we do that? It's pointless. Time Bandits is a perfect film. Leave it as it is. Anyway, that's kind of my soapbox for the day. I've just had many thoughts about this particular topic, and I struggled to find a venue in which I felt was appropriate to share them, and this was probably not it. But I'm going to just enjoy the sounds of the birds, because they're beautiful, and thank you all for watching. I will catch you on the next one.